I've been playing Pokemon Unite this past week a lot, way more than I expected. And during all of that time while playing this game, much like any Pokemon game, I spent a lot of it thinking about how this game could be made better. Instead of the typical approach of thinking of ideas for how to make the mainline Pokemon games better, I thought of some ideas from the mainline games that could make Pokemon Unite better. And I want to know what you guys think, so let's talk about it. Since the day Pokemon Unite was announced, it felt sandwiched in between simultaneously somehow being perfect for me while also being very not that. I'd never played a MOBA before this because they always read to me like real-time strategy games or something with gameplay that was bullet spongy and not super engaging, while also somehow having way too much stuff going on to keep track of, and that made them too complicated for me to be bothered. After playing Pokemon Unite though, I feel very similarly about Unite that I do about the mainline Pokemon games. I don't really have any changed opinions about MOBAs. I have no desire to play other MOBAs, but this game, I like it a lot, but I think I like it in spite of the gameplay, mostly. I will say that the gameplay of Pokemon Unite does appeal to me more than the gameplay of mainline Pokemon games, because as many of you know, I rather do a teeny bit more than just navigating through menus and picking the strongest option on the screen and pressing A. I know that's not a unanimously agreed upon take, but it is my take. That said, as someone who has begrudgingly grown to enjoy the combat of mainline Pokemon games in a Stockholm Syndrome sort of way, I will say there's a lot more to sink your teeth into with those than there is with Unite. Obviously, that's to be expected. The MOBA genre is younger than the Pokemon game formula, let alone Unite specifically, so it's unfair to say it should be as deep from the door, especially given the fact that Pokemon has tried its hardest to have its battle system grow with its audience in terms of extra layers added to the mainline games. They almost certainly set out to intentionally make this game as simple as possible to get as many people in the door as possible. And assuming this is successful, they'll add more layers as they go. We have to start with the caparaja in the room, monetization. Games are a business. They cost money to make, and tens if not hundreds, sometimes thousands of people's time and effort gets poured into even some of the worst games you can think of. Considering this fact, they're within their right to make an attempt at monetizing the end result. I get it, and I'm sure most of you do as well. The mainline Pokemon games have always taken the relatively standard approach of releasing for the standard MSRP for full price games on the platform they launch on. They also further monetize a generation of games by releasing two slightly varied versions. The cynical read on this would be to assume they're released this way to con kids and their parents out of an extra $40 to $60 to double dip on the same game. But I do genuinely believe they have always done this in an attempt to get people to play together. Call me an idealist, I guess. And the mainline game's monetization doesn't end there either. Traditionally, Pokemon generations are punctuated by a director's cut equivalent with new story content, maybe a few new Pokemon or forms for Pokemon, a new area or two on the map, quality of life improvements, stuff like that. This generation, they tried something new, and instead of doing all of that in a new release, they made it DLC for the current mainline games for half the price. By no means is everyone happy with this monetization or any of the past monetization efforts, but I don't think anyone would deny that it's leagues better than Pokemon Unite's current strategy. If you haven't played it, you may know that it has a free-to-play, free-to-start model. The game is free. You can continue to play it that way if you want. You get to pick a starting Pokemon. Getting enough free in-game coins to buy a second choice is doable in a reasonable amount of time, but everything does go downhill from there if you are super hardcore into the game and don't want to spend much money. The caps on what can be earned on a daily basis are way too low, the leveling unlocks are way too low, and the sheer amount of currencies paired with all of their individual frequencies are all, you guessed it, way too low. All of that said, I don't know if I completely agree with the criticism that the game is pay to win. It definitely allows you to pay to skip some grinding, but I haven't really felt like any one person's kit was any more unbearable than other people with that same Pokemon. And anecdotally, I've seen plenty of high-level players that they themselves contend haven't spent much, if not any money on the game at all. Who's to actually say, since at least to my knowledge there's no way to check other people's setup, but again, anecdotally, from my time playing so far, I haven't gotten pay to win vibes, just like pay to skip the line a bit vibes. Still bad, can still feel predatory, but not exactly the same thing. I personally dropped about $30 on the game so far, although in fairness, that was only partially because I felt inclined to upgrade held items, but mostly because I wanted to fast track unlocking a few Pokemon that I like superficially. And my personal philosophy with things like this tends to be, I don't mind dropping small amounts of money here and there in free games that have already provided me with a decent amount of entertaining content. I've had fun playing Pokemon Unite so far, so spending that money didn't feel like the worst thing in the world. That's not me trying to excuse it. I definitely think they'd be a lot closer to being on the up and up if all of that money could only go toward cosmetic items. And the interest of mainline game inspired changes to Unite, then I think monetization needs to feel like it's reasonable. That means that there should be some sort of explanation for why a lot of this stuff costs money. There's no real reason why I should have to spend money to upgrade an attack or whatever. I even understand needing to pay money for a Pokemon, but in this instance, paying money for a Pokemon throws off the balance of the game, which hurts the life of the game, so that reasoning isn't strong enough. You see what I'm getting at here? Everything needs to have a reason. It needs to feel like a good enough reason for the bulk of the player base to feel okay about making the decision that they're going to make. Not everyone feels great about the reasoning behind trading between two different versions or buying the director's cut game DLC of a generation. However, it is a reason, and I think it's safe to assume a reason most people buy and are okay with. With that out of the way though, not everything in Unite that can be improved is that bad, or what in my opinion is a must, but I do have a few ideas for changes and additions that could at the very least make for a couple of side modes or something. The first thing that comes to mind for me would be addressing the most unnatural feeling part about this game to me at first glance as a Pokemon fan: type effectiveness. Now before you say it, I know full well why they didn't implement this. It could very easily get exploited in a game like this, and or make the game way more complex than Pokemon Company would ever want for a Pokemon MOBA, a game that I'd assume is Pokemon Company's play at carving a Pokemon shaped niche and a genre that a lot of people are turned off by for being too complicated and or intimidating. But I'd argue most Pokemon fans already understand the type effectiveness rock, paper, scissors game that happens. Sure, there's some people that may scratch their heads at what's Bug's weaknesses again or anything like that. All of that can be taught through playing the game, and like I said, it could just be a fun side mode for people that do understand that. Because since the moment I started playing Unite, I hesitated to battle any Pokemon that could hit my Pokemon with a super effective hit, only to be reminded each time that there's no such thing in this game. And while, like I said, I understand that make playing and balancing Pokemon Unite a lot more complicated, on the bright side, in my opinion, it'd make Unite an even more interesting and exciting game to play and watch. Team comps could not just rely on a singular Pokemon if these Pokemon had to worry about their type being countered by the opposing team's type coverage. Also, on a balancing end, they could give Pokemon a different spread of attacks that not only reference their own type, but also coverage moves they can learn in the mainline games as well. Like, I could try to counter a Pikachu, whose electric type attacks would be scary to me, with Earthquake on my Charizard, for example. I'd even settle for this just being a quick match queue mode or something, if I'm being real. I can't promise I'd play ranked ever again if this was the case, but I think adding this to Unite could make it even more of a Pokemon game that I'd assume is unique from anything else in the MOBA space. On a similar note, weather. Implement weather into Pokemon Unite as well. This could even be done with the release of some new support Pokemon if they wanted, to be honest, that have some reasonable event tasks to unlock them for players that are still playing whenever that happens, of course. But this could complement Pokemon types' increased importance that would be caused by adding type effectiveness by giving Pokemon with moves that improve in the sun, rain, hail, or sandstorms a boost as well, in addition to the damage effects or accuracy effects, anything that is associated with these weather types in the mainline Pokemon games. I say this knowing full well that Cinderace and Alolan Ninetales in their current state would be an absolute demon in a format like this if you don't have types to counter them, but that's what balance patches are for. There's absolutely a way to implement this without it breaking the game, and I think there would be more fun to be had for it. Finally, this is more just me saying I want to see more wild Pokemon, but I want there to be a Pokemon-like day and night cycle where Pokemon are swapped out depending on the time of day in the game. And with that change, they change the Pokemon like Apom with, say, Galarian Zigzagoon, or the Combee and Vespiquen with like Venonats and Venomoth or something. Venomoth, for what it's worth, is already in the game. They could maybe be higher levels and largely function the same for all I care. Either way, I think the additional Pokemon with the nod to the time system in the mainline Pokemon games could be cool to have in this one. Obviously, there's plenty more things that could be added to the game to reference back to Pokemon games while also adding complexity and originality to Pokemon Unite along the way, like maybe giving players on both sides the ability to earn an egg in a battle that they can hatch and train to eventually be an extra teammate for the end game of a match, or maybe a 2v2 wingman mode to emulate double and multi battles, or some sort of system that could be a reference to one of the most important aspects of Pokemon across all mediums, trading. I don't know, they could do any number of these things or a bunch of all new things that I didn't think of myself. What I do know is there's a lot of room for growth and improvement here with Pokemon Unite, and assuming they get their act together on the monetization end, I plan to stick around to see all of it. What do you think? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to check out this playlist that I have linked on the screen of some of my favorite Pokemon game ideas that we have on this channel. Oh, and let me know if you would like to see me make a video on the opposite of this, Pokemon Unite ideas that could make mainline Pokemon games better. Okay, that's it for me. See you next week.